Hello again, Nightmare Society. I hope you all received new underwear for Christmas, because this one is a good one. A big thanks to user AverageDoorknob, Dmitri, and user SkinlessFather for allowing me to share their paranormal stories with you tonight. If you'd like to support the podcast, you can do so by sharing us with your friends, following us on Instagram at Nightmare Society Radio, leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, or becoming a member of our online campfire at patreon.com/Nightmare Society. There's a few tiers to choose from, starting at just $1 a month. If you have a story you'd like to submit, you can do so by emailing us at nightmaresocietyradio@gmail.com. Now, get comfy and prepare yourself for another episode of The Nightmare Society. Growing up, I always wanted to go on a bike ride at night. Something about it seemed really cool to me. It wasn't until I was 13 years old that my mom finally let me. She told me to wear my helmet, have my cell phone, take a flashlight, and she set the parameters for where I was allowed to go. She gave me about 4 miles, which was a lot to me. So right after the sun set, I was off. I loved it. There were no people out walking their dogs, no kids running around. The temperature was perfect, etc. It was really fun. So fun that I ignored the limits my mom set. You see, where I was biking was all walking paths. It was one of those grassy areas between two neighborhoods. There's this long path that went at least 600 feet at a 25-degree angle. I was flying down that hill, having an absolute blast, and I darted right through the parameters my mom set. She set these limits for a reason. Everything on the inside was close to houses and people. The outside, more specifically, the place where the path I was on led to, was completely barren. I rode along this path for 10 minutes before I could only see some of the lights from the houses on the inside of the limits. After 15 minutes of riding along this dirt path, I hear singing. It sounded about 30 to 40 feet in front of me. I stopped riding to hear it better. It was a woman's voice. She was singing Eleanor Rigby by the Beatles, but she wasn't singing the words, just the melody of the vocals. Her voice was strange. You know how when you have phlegm in your throat, your voice gets scratchy? That's what her voice sounded like. I inch forward to try and see her. I get close enough to see the silhouette of hair bouncing up and down, like she was headbanging. I decide to get my flashlight out. I'm thinking that maybe this person is in need of help or something. Or maybe this is an insane person and the light will scare them away. So I take the flashlight out of my pocket, point it at her, and turn it on. The moment the light hit her, she stopped moving completely. She was facing away from me. She had disgusting hair that seemed to be sticking together in clumps. Some of her hair was ripped off too. She was wearing a very oversized bright red hoodie. I was almost too scared to move. I think she was too. I conjured up as much bravery as I could and said, "Sorry," in a very oops, this is the wrong room kind of way. She didn't respond. I turned off the flashlight and put it back in my pocket. Just as I was turning my bike around, she screams. She screams in an awful, high-pitched voice. I seriously almost crapped myself as I threw myself back onto my bike. I hear her voice getting closer to me. I book it as fast as I can. I don't look behind me, and I don't stop pedaling. Her screaming grew quieter and quieter until it dissolved into the howling of the wind. Needless to say, I never went outside the perimeter again. My name is Stevie. I'm from a small town in Ohio that most have never heard of. In 2012, I lost both my dad and stepmom in a horrible motorcycle accident, and after that, strange things started happening to me. I moved into a duplex apartment with my best friend. We were on the first floor and there was another apartment above us. It used to be just one house, but they had closed off the stairs and made them into a closet for us. In the apartment upstairs, they laid floor down. Our bedrooms were on one side of the house, and the bathroom and kitchen were on the other side of the house, through our living room. Both of our rooms were connected by big double doors. We were both single and would often fall asleep in the same room watching movies and whatnot. On one particular night, we put the big mattress on the floor in front of the couch and we were watching scary movies. Another one of our friends was there as well as my little boy who was only 1.5 years old at the time. Nellie was up on the couch and me and my son and Randy were all down on the mattress on the floor. We must have fallen asleep at some point, but I randomly woke up with a complete and utter feeling of terror. I couldn't breathe, and when I opened my eyes, there was this dark, faceless figure on top of me. Its eyes were red, and I could feel it holding me down. It's like it was saying,
"It's getting harder and harder to breathe, isn't it?
It's as if it was getting pleasure out of it. I don't know how long this went on for, but it felt like forever. I began to try and move, swinging my arms, anything trying to get free of its grasp. And all at once I sat straight up, and I screamed. When I turned around, Nellie was sitting up on the couch, and she was crying. And the first thing out of her mouth was,
"I couldn't get to you."
She described in detail what I had just thought that I had dreamed. A dark figure on top of me. She said she tried to scream, but no noise came out. I don't think we fell back to sleep that night. On other occasions, we would get these weird feelings like someone was watching us. I would turn every light in the house on to go to the bathroom at night. We moved out just a few short months after moving in. My sister-in-law's older sister and her husband own that house now. Her and my brother lived upstairs in that apartment for over 1 year, and I wouldn't even go visit them. And to this day, I still will not step foot into that house. It was the middle of March in 2018, and I had just moved into my family's new house. I remember getting chills and feeling like I was being watched the first time I went into the house. I quickly found out the chills and feelings were happening for a reason. I've never been able to shake them off fully. It was only a few days after the move, and my dad and I were fixing up the hallway lights. While my dad went outside, I walked past the hallway to get a drink. All I remember when walking was the slightest yet noticeable laughter down the hallway. I shook it off, thinking I was just hearing my mom playing a video in her office or something. I got my drink and went to go see if my dad needed any help. While walking past the hallway again, I heard the laughter again. This time louder. It sounded like a little girl's laughter, which was weird because we didn't have any neighbors within seeing range, let alone hearing range. I went to my mom's office and asked if she was watching a video. Confused, she said no and asked why. I told her I heard laughing, and she shook it off, saying it was probably the wind or something. I quickly forgot about the experience as I helped my dad finish up the lights. The whole day I just could not shake the feeling that something was watching me. But every time I looked around, there wouldn't be anything or anyone. My dad eventually left for the airport to go on a business trip, so it was just me and my mom for the next few days. I wished my dad had never left, because it was only just that night when things got terrifying. My mom had just gone to bed, and I stayed up watching a bit of TV and playing games. The next thing I remember is hearing that laugh again, this time louder and more sinister in a way. What shook me the most was almost immediately after the laugh, I heard a male's voice telling her to shush. After hearing that, I quickly turned off the TV and went straight to my room, closing the door behind me. I grabbed my phone and earbuds to listen to some music, hoping that would calm me down. After about an hour, I finally felt comfortable enough to go to bed. I'm a really heavy sleeper, so it usually takes a great deal of noise or movement to wake me up. For some reason, however, I woke up feeling like something was in the corner of the room, just standing there watching me. The next thing I remember is hearing the laughter once more. This time it was right beside me, and felt like it had harm to it. I was so terrified that I could not move, and even though I tried to yell, no words came out. After a few minutes of laughter, I remember feeling something start to climb on top of me. It wasn't sudden and quick like the movies. This was really slow and intense. It felt almost as if whatever was climbing on me knew exactly how terrified I was, and was using it as an advantage. Since I was laying on my stomach, I could not see what it was, and was still too terrified to move or even try to look. I felt whatever was on me getting further and further up closer to my head, eventually to the point where it was basically laying on top of me. I was finally able to let out one sentence very quickly while this was happening, and all I could say was,
Who are you?
The next thing I know, I feel something almost like a warm breath against my neck, and hearing her answer,
I was once alive, just like you.
Before she could say anything else, I remember hearing a man's voice from the corner saying,
That's enough. Now leave him alone.
His voice was monotone and had authority to it. Yet I felt as if he meant no harm, and the authority wasn't to me, but to her. As soon as he said that, I remember feeling like a weight had been lifted off of me, and I could move and talk again. I quickly moved around to see who was in my room, but all I remember feeling was a gust of wind past me and seeing the door slowly closing. I could tell it was not a nightmare, because I knew I closed my door when I went to bed, and yet there it was, closing again, almost as if it had never been closed. I immediately went to my parents' room and woke up my mom. I told her all about my experience and that it was not a nightmare. She was getting ready to tell me it was just a nightmare, but then we both heard it. A subtle but clear enough laughter of a girl. Needless to say, I spent the rest of the night in their room on the floor by the bed. The next morning, we talked about it more, but could not agree on what exactly it or they were, and why I had that experience. I have since moved out, and my parents have not had any experiences like I had. My mom, however, on occasions hears laughter, but says it sounds more mellow and sad, almost as if she misses someone. I wonder if that someone could be me, but I'm not willing to spend another night to find out. This occurred when I was 20 years old. It was sometime during the week. I was driving from work straight to my then girlfriend's house for dinner. She lived with her mother, grandmother, and younger sister, so it was just the four of them living at the house. I helped set up the table for dinner. After having dinner, my girlfriend and I spent about 2 hours up in her room, laying around, talking, and making plans for the coming weekend. It was getting late and I had to be up early the following morning, so I decided to call it a night. I put on my jacket, kissed my girlfriend goodbye, and headed downstairs. I made my way towards the front door, which led through the kitchen. Before I could even make another move, I saw two creatures leading the younger sister towards the front door. I was absolutely stunned. It was so shocking that I felt like I was out of my body watching this happen. They were both small in size, with long arms and a long neck, and wore tight black jumpsuits. I stood there watching them walk straight through the wall. There was another one, much taller. His face looked scaled and brown, and he was wearing a robe with a hood over his head. He honestly looked like a lizard. He came out of the bedroom from where the other two came from, leading the way for the younger sister. At this point, I was panting. My heart was racing. I don't remember anything else, but waking up next to my girlfriend, upstairs in her bedroom. I remember so vividly that this happened. I remember every detail and the fear that overtook my entire being. The sister was spotted by the neighbors, laying naked and unconscious in the front yard that same night. I told my girlfriend everything I saw. She told me that this has been occurring since she was a child, and that they kept it as a family secret. This also was a big reason why their father had left them years ago. After this experience, there's been other paranormal happenings at that house, particularly with the sister. We continued to date for a little over a year after the first occurrence, and then finally broke up, while we kept in touch for several years, and the strange happenings only got more and more intense. It's been 8 years now since I last spoke to her, so hopefully they are okay. Thanks so much for listening, and until next time.
Sweet dreams.